guys have rhythm. I was clapping all wrong until you guys started clapping. It takes a village, right? Right? Happy Easter. Happy Resurrection. Yeah. I got to tell you, dream come true. I got to tell you, I have wanted to hear that song on this day for years. And then, lo and behold, we attract a sax player as our music director. And I'm like, I got the perfect song for you. And so we've had this one, waiting. And today is the perfect day. Thank you, music team. The City of God. It's a song that I wanted to always springboard from because the lyrics are so perfect for this day. You see, has anyone here, I know this is Resurrection Day, but isn't it funny how crucifixions tend to precede resurrections, right? And so today we're having a conversation about living the ascended life. But I don't want to bypass the idea that we experience crucifixions in our lives. And when we do, doesn't it not feel like you're up against a wall and that you cannot see the light and that it's only that love of God, only when we humble ourselves enough to perhaps come to the knees. Not that anybody's requiring you to genuflect here, but it's an outer sign of an inner humility that, you know what? My way hasn't been working. My way as believing myself to be separate from my Creator, is believing myself to be separate from God, from believing myself to be separate from you, isn't working. But of my own self, I can't rise. And it's a good thing I'm never of my own self. I'm never of my own self. I'm only ever humbling a false self that has puffed itself up to think that it's real, to think that it's powerful. But it's got to puff itself up because it knows deep down inside it ain't got it. Right? Right? And that there's only that one power and that one presence that we call God, that I like to refer to as love. And as we've said, we honor all pathways to God. But what we do here in unity is that we take that God consciousness and we don't believe that it's bestowed upon us. We believe that it already is, and it is who we are. And we have just fallen asleep to it. And today we celebrate our choosing the thought system of love, which restores us to sanity, which restores us to our divine identity as Christ. And all that means is that I know that I am one with the all that is, with the Creator, with the source of my being, and that it is the only source. You're not my source. My bank account isn't my source. My relationships aren't my source. Even my body is not my source. One source, one God, one power, one presence. And from that, then we rise. And we rise above this illusion that we've made up, that puffed up self made up, that we rise in consciousness. And so the city of God, will you receive me? And the question I have, the city of God, will you receive it? It is there. It is the birthright. It is the consciousness. It is that with which we were already given. And so this whole Lenten season, we've been separating the chaff from the wheat. We've been releasing that which has encased our good, that which has that hard outer shell of conditioning, of illusion, of fear and fearfulness. And that as we have gone through our practice of releasing that which we are not and denying, the proper use of denial is to not deny that which is false is operating as truth in our life. Believing an illusion. So we have, for this period of time, been sorting. and we're separating out the thought forms and the thought system born of fear. And I got to tell you, you really sometimes do have to sit with it because it can fool you. It can be cunning and baffling and try to convince you that it is real. And so we have this gestation period, or this period of time where we practice. So take a breath with me here. Not so much because you need to take a breath, but because I need to take a breath. Lord have mercy, glory, hallelujah, all glory to God. May I be self-emptied and God-filled as this message comes forth, pours through in perfect ways that lands upon this community and all those within the vibratory field such that they know that they know that they know that this resurrection is about them. That this is our resurrection. God doesn't need us, and Jesus sure doesn't need us to celebrate his resurrection. He's been sitting and waiting for us to realize it for ourselves and to walk that way and to rise in that consciousness and awareness. And so at Christmas time, our first Christmas together, we celebrated the birth, our birth in innocence. And what happens to that birth and innocence in our story? As Gail mentioned, we have all these stories about the ministry then that leads to this point. And isn't it true, you know, we can all imagine like we're born as babies, as innocent, into this experience, only to have experiences in which we forget our innocence, in which we forget and fall asleep to the power inherent within us. And so we go on this dreamlike experience where aspects of the divine and our divine identity have fallen asleep and been hijacked. Right? And so, you know, Jesus walked this path. And I think I said then, you know, Jesus doesn't need us to celebrate his birthday, and Jesus doesn't need us to celebrate his resurrection either, that it is for us. And it's our individual resurrection. And so what does that mean? Like, how does that translate into language that is pertinent for where we're at now? Last week I said that I believe that Jesus walked into Jerusalem already in his mastery. Already in his mastery, was not a victim of the story. And what we have done, I believe, this is just what I believe, try it on for yourself. I believe that we have projected upon the story and upon Jesus this victimhood, this victimization, that it was done to him. And what I suggested last week is no. He walked in his mastery, intending to demonstrate for us how to overcome the crucifixions of our lives. So it was and is a practical demonstration. And that as we partake of it, not projecting it onto Jesus, but saying, you know what, this is really my story. This is really about me. And how do I overcome the crucifixions of my life? And how do I awaken to the divine identity that is already inherent within me? How do I do that? And it's embedded in this story. And I'm going to invite you to listen to this with me, or these ideas that come from the idea of the question being. And I'm going to ask the question. And I'm going to invite you to pause and answer for yourself. Are you individuations of spirit, oh, holy, beloved community and family, are you willing to accept the resurrection for yourself? Are you willing to accept it for yourself? So we pause. And perhaps there's a nod, perhaps there's a yes. I'd love to hear some hooping and hollering about that. You betcha, like being excited about it, like pumping ourselves up. Yes, I am willing to accept the resurrection for myself. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Are you willing to accept the resurrection for yourself? Yes. Love it, love it. And so when we accept the resurrection for ourselves, it means that we are willing to moment by moment, breath by breath, choose love. Super simple. Right? Right. Super simple all the time. Choose only love. Are you committed to walk through this life choosing love? Yes. And so with that as our foundation that we are celebrating, today we recognize, and these are the words of Joshua ben Joseph from the Way of Mastery. Today we recognize that you have the power to celebrate and accept your resurrection as the living Christ. So in other words, you don't have to die. You resurrect the aspect of yourself that is the living Christ, and that's what we now present to the world. We walk that way. I'm going to invite you to shift in your seat a little bit. I commit to living as the resurrected Christ. Maybe tap your shoulder. I commit to living as the resurrected Christ. Not as the wounded Christ, not as the victimized Christ, but the resurrected Christ. Right here and right now. What we are asked to do is to see beyond the boundaries of death, loss, fear, hurt, and anger. All of this has been embedded in this story, and that we are reborn every time in the face of death, in the face of loss, in the face of hurt or anger. We just become willing to do what we always do together. And what's that? We're going to pause, and we're going to take a breath, and we're going to connect with Spirit. Because when I'm focused on anger, hurt, loss, or death, that's that wall. And it does cut out the light, does it not? But I'm going to take that breath, and I'm going to step back. Oh yeah, these eyes, the body eyes cannot see past that, but the eyes of Christ can. And we rise to a different seeing. You are reborn every time in the face of this we remember love and loving thoughts. You know, these are thoughts of God. I always think, just think thoughts of God. Well, you can muster up ideas of what your best thinking of the thought of God is. It's got something to do with love and kindness. It's got something to do with compassion. It's got something to do with understanding. And in the biblical story, are those not the things that fell asleep? Symbolically, when Peter fell asleep, that represented the falling asleep of our faith and our faithfulness. Or when James fell asleep in the garden, it's the falling asleep of our ability to understand. Or when John fell asleep, falling asleep, the love of us, we cut ourselves off from the love that we are. And what Jesus did, he didn't rebuke them per se, but he embraced them and coaxed them to wake up. And remember, everybody in the story represents ourselves. So how do we awaken that faith, that love, that understanding within us as we activate the Christ of our being? You see, Jesus represents an aspect of ourselves as well. Every person sitting in here, every person listening has the desire, or you wouldn't be here, for something greater. Has the desire to have an understanding of who we are. Truly who we are. Not the identity of the world, but the identity of this Christ being as us. And so we become willing to surrender all of the stories that we've made up and to remember the peace of God. Remember, I think I said recently there's no loss in this. We think we're going to lose something. We think we're going to lose, an aspect of our quirky personality that we find humorous, or, it's just our way of being. Or maybe our way of being is playing small, and so people don't have great expectations of us. And so this idea of all we're doing is releasing that which no longer serves us. Because there's no loss in God, there is only gain. It was a year ago today that I believe the president of the board of trustees here announced to this community that I would be coming here as your senior minister. It was a year ago today. I was living in Florida. And during this Easter season, we had interviews. The first time I ever spoke here was last weekend a year ago during Palm Sunday. And I remember by that time we had already done some negotiating, and we felt like we were a match. We were just finishing things up. And I remember that I took myself on a retreat last year. I pulled myself away. I didn't go to church. I wasn't in community. I went to the Gulf, and I was walking the beach. And I had a whole weekend of ceremony and journaling, because the prospect of coming to a church and serving, particularly during this time in our world, felt a little daunting to me. I'd been doing it for a while, and I wasn't sure I wanted to keep doing it, but I felt really called. Like it wasn't done, like something wasn't complete within me with regard to serving in this particular way. And I remember asking Spirit, if this is my pathway, if I am called in this direction, I need a new purpose for my ministry. I'm tired of talking about crucifixion and how to overcome them. I'm tired of the overcoming energy of a human experience. I'm ready for the promise of resurrection. Can I have a ministry that still acknowledges that we have those challenges, but where the scale begins to tip and a group of people become more willing to identify with the Christ of themselves than with the mortal humanity aspect of themselves? In fact, having it flipped. So instead of the human and the small self and the fearful self leading and making decisions, being with those who have had enough crucifixions, enough overcoming, that they begin to want to choose a different way of walking in life, that they want to begin to choose a resurrected way of life, that there is the promise of walking in this experience as an ascended being. And that's what I was interested in. Now, again, mind you, not to say that we don't have our challenges, but that we begin to be willing to set aside the drama of the challenges and the fixation on the stories surrounding those challenges, such that when we run into each other, we're talking about being as Christ and how we're extending love and how we're choosing love in these challenging situations, such that the scale begins to tip where that's all we want. And what we want and what we identify with is what we will attract and what we will become. And so let us walk in that practice. And so that was what I said. I could commit to that. I could commit to spiritual community and leading in this way, because you know what? When you get up here, you're living the talk. They always say, be careful what your talk is about, because it's going to be working you. And it does. And so I decided that I didn't want to talk so much about the crucifixion experience, that I want to be living as Christ and be the walking, living, and breathing demonstration, humbly so. Got my foibles, got my human foibles. You guys know, people who work with me, y'all know. But we always turn to prayer, and we always turn to rising in consciousness. So that's why I came here. And so that was how I wanted to dedicate my ministry for the rest of my life in this experience. I felt that that would be a worthy way to be. And so there comes a time, and as we have talked, not bypassing the crucifixion, is that we come upon this place where we view it like this. And it's the intersection of this horizontal axis with the vertical. The vertical represents eternal life. The vertical represents God consciousness. The vertical represents the conscious choice to choose love. The horizontal is time-bounded. The horizontal has polarities. The horizontal, hey, it's an experience. We called it forth. But the horizontal, it's almost as we look to the left and we become willing in that time-boundedness to look to the left, which may represent our past. And we become willing to let ourselves off the hook. We become willing to forgive ourselves. We become willing to see that regret is futile and that the experience of the past brought us to where we are today. And not only that, same with our brothers and sisters. Everybody was always doing the best that they could in any given moment. So we can forgive the past, and then it extends to the future, which tends to represent our anxieties and our fears about not having what we think we need in order to be safe. Anybody feel that way right now? Will I have what I need when I'm older? Will I have what I thought I was going to have to keep me safe? How will my end come? All of those things. We become willing to give up our thinking, our preoccupation with this. And we say, and the dramas. And when we're on that cross, everything represents what we have done to ourselves. Nobody did it to us. The crown of thorns representing the prevailing thought patterns, the chronic thought patterns that keep swirling around in our head of negativity, of loss, of fearfulness. And guess what? When you put that on your head and you carry it around for a lifetime, you get a headache, don't you? Sometimes some blood rolls down, and that is depleting our life energy. And the metal that holds our feet and our hands to this cross, you know, they're like saying, hey, you're not going to rise. You're not going to rise. We're not going to let you rise. We're going to keep you bounded to this horizontal axis. But there comes a time when we connect sufficiently and we keep overcoming these crucifixions. We keep going to center. And we say this: it is finished. It is finished. It is done. I'm done. I'm just done with it. I'm finished. Into thine hands I commend my spirit. And as I commend my spirit, in this consciousness of love, I rise. And so do you. So do we. It was never meant to be a solo act. We fell asleep together. We do a pretty good job of that. But we got to wake up together, my friends. We've got to wake up together, choosing love, and we rise above this plane. And the moment that we do that, it's as if we open our eyes again and we're at peace. We see what's going on in the world. It's okay. But we have the ability to see beyond it. We have the ability to allow this divine guidance to propel our actions. We have this divine guidance, this intelligence, this wisdom to guide our voice, such that it is surrendered to God consciousness, to love and only love. And it is practical. I'm telling you, it's practical. And so we take a breath here. And we have a period into the tomb we go. And that tomb experience is this idea that all of those aspects of ourself that had fallen asleep are being integrated. It's all integrated. All integrated. All those aspects of yourself that you tried to disown, you just bring it home. Bring it home, baby. Bring it home. It's okay. We bring it home. And that tombstone that is before that tomb represents all of those trials. But you know what? It's rolled away. Don't know how that happened. There's some speculation about how that happened, but that tombstone is no longer there. And those tombstones became stepping stones, such that we bless those things that we used to curse, because we know that without them we would not have been able to rise. And so yeah, glory, hallelujah, yes. And so we walk out of that tomb, and this is our ascended living. You know, I imagine Jesus walking outside that tomb. I don't think he was as kind of heavy as we are, feeling the body in the way. I think that the body was transmuted. It was lighter. In fact, some people didn't even recognize him. In fact, most people did not recognize him. But who recognizes him in the garden outside the tomb is his beloved Mary. The first person he was revealed to that could behold him as Christ, could behold his ascendedness. And that represents to me that it is the divine feminine in us that can behold that must be integrated into our society, into our culture, into our leadership, that can see beyond the appearances, beyond the form, and beholds her beloved. Beholds the beloved, and be the heralder, the one who speaks forth, he is risen. There is an aspect in you that can do that for you, that can declare for you that you are risen. Now I got to tell you, I just changed my name. I changed my name. You guys, when you first brought me here, I went by another name, but now I go by Reverend René. When you change, when you have a transformation, not everybody's going to recognize you. It's okay. Not everybody's going to remember to call me René. And the people who will have the hardest time with it are the people who have known me the longest. It was pretty easy. I came here and said, this is my new name. And you all complied. I'm the one who goofs up more than you guys do. It's great, because you see me as who I told you I am. And when you see me as what I told you I am, guess what? I'm that. And so there will be people, those people who have known me the longest, many of them will shift and change and see me. But how many times in our lives have we overcome something only to take it back? And so the key to the ascended life is to live from that resurrected consciousness, to claim it, to celebrate it, to own it, even when you don't feel it so much. This is our affirmative way of life. And if people can't see you for who you are, what you are, how you serve, love them and bless them anyway. It's okay. They'll see someday. They'll know who you are. Yeah. And then we give the gift of seeing our brothers and sisters as resurrected too, when they can't see it for themselves. So take a breath here with me. How do you feel? How do you feel? Are you willing to walk this way with me? You know, I can't get it all in today. Good thing we got more time together. Good thing that we get to practice an ascended living together. And so I'm going to invite you to take a breath with me as we move into meditation, because I think we've covered plenty for today. Oh my goodness gracious. Will you enter the garden with me? That as we begin to allow the body eyes to close, that what gets activated is that vertical, that consciousness of God, that consciousness of love. We've been sitting in our garden, and we enter our garden as Christ today. We're perfectly safe. We can let it all go and release all tension. We take a breath. And as I enter the garden of my consciousness, I am responsible for my garden. Nothing occurs in this garden except that which I've called forth now. I'm a conscious creator. I'm creating the good, the holy, and the beautiful within this garden. Breathe in and breathe out. And ask the self, and silently answer, will you accept the resurrection for yourself? Will you accept the resurrection for yourself? Will you choose only love? And I'm going to invite you to allow this question to percolate through your being in this garden, as we invite our music team to sing a song entitled In the Garden. This is a meditation song. And at the conclusion of the song, there will be wreaths up here, and you can silently, sacredly come up to the wreath and take a flower from the garden that will represent you as the resurrected being in your life. So we take a breath. We invite the ushers to place the wreaths out, and we invite our music team to go ahead and